Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Danny and you're watching Nerd on a Budget. So welcome to the next budget build for June 2016. If you've been watching my content for a while, then you already know the deal, but for the people who are new to my channel, let me fill you in a little bit. I do all my budget builds using mostly secondhand parts. That means that they're used. And the reason I do that is because there's a lot of money to be saved if you use used parts. I'm not talking about just like 10 to 20% savings compared to new parts. I'm talking about like 30, 40, or even sometimes 50% savings compared to if you were to build an equivalent computer using only new components. My last two builds came in at around the $250 price point, and I'll post them in the description section below. But for this build, I decided to try to push that price even lower. Some people only like to play games like CSGO or League of Legends. Overwatch is out now, so those games don't require as much as titles like Grand Theft Auto 5 and The Witcher 3. So the reason for building this build the way I did it was to try to target that audience. In terms of the deals for the parts that I found, in terms of like the rarity, if you were to compare it to a trading card game or like to an MMO equipment rarity chart, they'd probably be in the uncommon category. They aren't super common. You're not going to be able to just watch this video and go out and find all the parts that I use for around similar prices in the same day. But if you spend about 2 or 3 weeks, you can probably put a build together very similar for a similar price point. What you'll see in this video, as well as all the build videos that I do, is that they can be replicated, so remember that. But without further ado, let's check out the build. Here's a quick look at all the parts that I use in this build. As always, the prices include shipping and taxes, so the final price reflects exactly how much I paid. The CPU and the motherboard were bought as a combo from Craigslist. If you remember, these were the parts that I bought from the very first Craigslist ride-along video I ever made, and I got them for $60. The CPU is an AMD Phenom X4 955 Black Edition quad-core processor. Each of the cores clock in at 3.2 GHz stock. It's actually an older processor and it's about 8 years old now, but we'll see how it handles the games of today. It comes with the stock heatsink, and if you look at this, it is the original thermal paste that was applied on it. That means that this thermal paste can be about 8 years old. I'm going to use it because even though it's 8 years old, it's not flaking yet and it's still a little bit gooey, so I think I can make it work. Of course, I'm going to monitor the temperatures very closely, and if there's a problem with the temperatures, then I'll clean off the old paste and I'll put a new one on. It was paired with an MSI NF750 motherboard. When going for older parts like this, I personally try to find deals as combos because buying parts separately makes it a lot harder to match, and it can cost more since the individual parts aren't made anymore. The graphics card and the power supply were also bought in a bundle. I got the GTX 660 and the Cooler Master 500W Extreme Power Plus on hardware swap for $80, which breaks the pricing down to around $65 for the 660 and $15 for the power supply. With the announcement of the 1000 series Nvidia cards, the GTX 660 is now considered 3 generations old. This doesn't make it obsolete though. If you follow budget builds, you'll see that one of the most popular cards is the GTX 750 Ti. It's a cheap yet affordable card that can still run the latest games today. Well, the GTX 660 beats it just slightly, and it comes in at a cheaper price point when used, so that's why I chose it for this build. As for the power supply, it's nothing too special, and you can tell that it's an older one because it doesn't have the braiding around the cables. It works though, and Johnny Guru gave this power supply a thumbs up. The review was actually for the 430 watt variant, but this one's in the same family, so it should be good to go. For the RAM, I found some Kingston low profile DDR3 clocked at 1333 MHz. I bought a set of 2x4 GB on Reddit hardware swap for $20, but for this build, I'm actually only going to use one stick, so I'll add $10 to the price. For storage, I found a 160GB Samsung SpinPoint hard drive. This basically came out to be $5, and the reason it was so inexpensive was because of the capacity and the fact that it's a SATA 2. But come on, we're talking about $5 here. This works well for people who mainly play RTSs, MOBAs, or FPS games that aren't any more than 10 to 15 gigabytes. You can always add storage later without a problem. And last but not least, of course, the case, which will hold all the components. And I went with the Enermax Thorex mid-size tower. I was able to get this for $35 brand new on Newegg, and there's also a $20 rebate, which brought the final total price down to $15. There's nothing too spectacular about this case. It was just something that was cheap and had good reviews on Newegg, and could fit a full-size ATX motherboard, so that's why I went with it. I had zero problems when putting this build together. The case had plenty of room to work in and everything fit where it needed to. I'm not the biggest stickler in the world when it comes to aesthetics, so I never spend too much time on cable management. I kinda just bundle them behind the panel without doing too much velcroing or zip tying. You can be the judge of how it ended up looking, but I don't care too much and it works for me. I'm still using my Windows 7 key from college to install a fresh OS onto my builds, and then taking advantage of the Windows 10 upgrade to generate a new unique license. If you don't have any old Windows licenses so that you can do this, there are multiple options you can go with, and I'll link them in the description section below, but it ends up being one of two things. Either use Windows 10 unactivated since it still works, or buy a cheaper key off of a third-party seller like Penguin. In terms of CPU temperature, the old thermal paste actually ended up working just fine, so let's see how this performs. Alright, so I know I said that this build was catered more towards like CSGO players and mobile players, less intense games, but I figured, I've been testing Witcher 3 on all my builds so far, so why not keep that tradition up? So let's do that. And I'm going to record with my camera because I know that the CPU is pretty old and fraps would kill it, so I want the gameplay that I'm showing you guys to be smooth at least. So we're going to go with the camera, and on Overwatch, depending on how that actually performs with fraps, I may or may not use this camera too. I know it's a little bit ghetto, but at least what you see is exactly how the system performs without having to add frames for fraps being on. So, yep, let's check out the options. So let's go with medium since this is a really cheap build. And let's see, 1080p. I don't think we're gonna get more than 60 frames per second, so this setting in desync should be fine. And then everything else is set to medium. And for post-processing, I'm actually gonna put it on low because the frame drops that you get from setting it to a higher setting isn't worth the actual visual difference. Like, I don't even notice the difference between low and medium for post-processing. Most of it is the graphics. So we'll set it to that and start it. Alright, so we're in game, and let's see. So mid-20s, 30 FPS. It's kind of all over the place. Let's see if it'll stabilize. Alright, so mid-30s. Let's go in the water. Always gotta do the water test. Alright, still at mid-30s. So the RAM is fully maxed out at the 4 gigs that's in the system. Graphics card is maxed out, and the CPU has a little bit of room, and everything is at safe temperatures, okay? Alright, so let's fight these downers. Alright, mid 30 frames per second. Okay, let's get killed by these downers, actually. The game is even telling me to run, but I died instead. Okay, so around mid 30 frames per second. So we'll try that one more time, just to make sure that the results are consistent. Alright, we are alive again. I think I really need to make progress from here, because all my benchmarks have been this area. And I'm not sure if I said it before, but I don't play Witcher 3 normally. I just got the digital code from buying a product, and I'm not interested in really playing it for the storyline. I'm more of a multiplayer game type of person. So I'm just using this just to benchmark. Alright, so both times pretty consistent. Mid 30s to 40 frames per second. Considering the price of the computer and how demanding The Witcher 3 is, I'm very happy with the results. So let's check out Overwatch. I'm actually going to be using my camera to record because when I start Overwatch up with fraps on, it warns me that says that it's not supported. And it still lets you play, but I was using fraps to record during gameplay, and the program would just shut down out of nowhere. Not blue screen of death or anything, it's just Overwatch was shut down. So I don't know what's up with that. I couldn't get it to work. Every match I played, it would just stop, and that's why I have this little message right here, because I left a couple of matches early due to the game shutting down. So I don't want to get penalized. I'm just going to use this camera. So let's go into settings and have it 1920 by 1080. of course, no FPS limit, desync is off, and graphics quality is set to high. So let's see how this does. The last time I played an FPS normal, like, you know, daily, would be back in college, like 2007 and 2008, with the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare. After that, I kind of just played only MOBAs and MMOs and stuff like that. So my aiming isn't that great right now, so don't judge me too harshly. I'm gonna play Roadhog because I like that he's self-sustainable. He can self-heal, he has a lot of health, and his hook is super fun. So I'm not the best with him yet. Alright, so right out of the gate, CPU is at max load even without fraps. So good thing I don't have it on anyways. 3 out of 4 gigabytes of RAM is being used, and the GPU is about 75 to 80%. Everything is within safe temperatures. Alright, getting owned, but smooth gameplay, so that's good. Alright, so as low as about mid 40s when there's like a lot of action on the screen. Oh, dropped to 40. Alright, yeah, so anywhere from 40 to 60 depending on how many players on the screen at the same time and how many bullets are flying around. You're playing a 2016 new title with a system that costs $170 on high, and you're getting this performance. For what we have right here, I'm really happy with what the system can do. So that's going to be the end of the benchmark. Let's take a look at the build summary. Everything is pretty bargain bin compared to the builds I've done before this. We're using a really old processor and motherboard, only 4 gigabytes of RAM, a tiny SATA 2 hard drive, a power supply that isn't rated 80+, a stock heatsink with stock thermal paste. The list kind of just goes on, but you've seen the benchmarks, they didn't disappoint. I don't know if you can really expect much more out of a system that costs $170 out the door. This is just meant to get someone started on PC gaming for the first time with such a low cost barrier. It's definitely not meant to play the latest AAA titles for the next few years. Alright, and that is the build. If you enjoyed this video, then as always, I appreciate it if you can leave a like. That really helps me out because it makes my video more findable, is that the word? It makes it so that my video pops up on searches so that other people can find my content as well. And if you're new to my channel and you haven't subscribed yet, then all I ask of you is to consider doing so if you enjoyed this video. And if you're not convinced yet, then please check out the rest of my content and see if that changes your mind. If not, then I just thank you for watching regardless. Now for the question of this video. Would this PC suit your needs? Why or why not? I'm curious to hear what you guys think. But other than that, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.